Hey everybody, I'm Jack Rita with Future Pastimes, and I'm the designer of the ECAS and Mauritania expansion for the classic Dune board game from Gale Force 9. And in this video, we're going to be talking about one of the variants from that expansion, and that is the Homeworlds. And we're going to do a focus on Wallach 9, which is the Bene Gesserit Homeworld. So that is the token that you put your reserve forces on. It lets you know on the back if you can't recognize it just by looking at it, and the accompanying Homeworld card, which has a high threshold side, which is what you have when you have at least 11 of your Bene Gesserit forces there, and on the back is the low threshold side when you dip below that number. So the way this works is when you start the game and you have a certain number of reserves, which for the Bene Gesserit is going to be 19 of their reserves on Wallach 9, they're going to have their high threshold ability. And that ability is when sending spiritual advisors to the polar sink as part of another faction's shipment, you may send 2. So what this does is it really lets the Bene Gesserit stockpile forces in the sink at a much higher rate than they normally do. So normally when the Bene Gesserit in basic and advanced, when someone else ships forces from off-planet to Arrakis, they can send 1 force for free to the polar sink. So that is useful for them to slowly gather their forces for free as other players are bringing their forces down to the planet. And as they only have 5 spice to start with, and in basic they don't get the 2 spice for Chom Charity. So it's a little bit of a perk in order to save expenses. But with the Wallach 9 high threshold, that is doubled essentially. So what might take 4 or 5 turns, you can do in 1 or 2 turns. But the trade-off is, of course, that once you have dipped down, you're going to be at low threshold. And when you're at low threshold, many of the factions actually incur a penalty. So not only do you lose the high threshold ability when you are no longer at high threshold, but there's a handicap. And in this case, the Bene Gesserit, you may not send spiritual advisors. So that can be a little bit harsh if you're somebody who prefers taking much longer to get forces down onto the planet. Now, there's a little bit of a trade-off. So whenever any faction is at low threshold, their free revival rate increases by 1, and their Chom Charity rate increases by 1 too. And in advanced, for Bene Gesserit, this is actually extra good because they collect Chom Charity every turn, whether they need it or not, and this still increases that. So they'll be collecting 3 spice in the Chom Charity phase once they're at low threshold. So this is going to help them to be able to afford to ship down the rest of those forces on their own. And keep in mind, it's not like, oh, I'm going to have to send 10. I'm going to have to pay to send 10 down. Because actually what happens is you're at 11, and then somebody ships down and you can send 2 down. That'll put you down to 9, and then you're at low threshold. Now, sometimes, you are at 10, so you're not going to get that extra 1 out of there. But I try to time it in such a way. And as I explained in the Caladan one, what I do is I actually make a separate stack of forces. That is my low threshold, which in the case for the Bene Gesserit is I make sure that I've got 11 in a stack, and once that stack is all the way down to 0, then I know that I am at low threshold, and it helps to remind me I got to flip this over, and I lose the perk and I incur the penalty there. But I think the Bene Gesserit are a powerful faction already, so it's not necessarily going to hamstring you very much. And again, because of the increased revival and Chom Charity. And revival, remember, when you revive your forces, they go to your reserves. So you could get back up to a high threshold in fairly short order. Now, the other element that happens in a game with Homeworlds is you can use your shipping action to ship your forces to someone else's homeworld and attack them there. And if you take over the planet, meaning you're the only one who has forces there, you become the occupier. And you remain the occupier for as long as you have forces there. Not until the native faction gets rid of you completely do you stop being the occupier. So if you are able to attack the Bene Gesserit on Wallach 9 and beat them there to occupy, you're going to gain a 1 spice income in spice collection phase, and you also get this ability that you and your ally are immune to the voice. So it doesn't cancel the voice for everybody, but it does cancel it for you, which gives you the incentive to occupy Wallach 9. There's a lot of people, they are not terribly keen to get into a battle with the Bene Gesserit, knowing that the voice is there, especially when you learn that the Bene Gesserit have a weapon and or a defense. Then it becomes especially scary to have to deal with the voice. But it may be worth it for you or your ally to occupy Wallach 9 in order to be immune to that effect and, get 1 spice. Now, anytime you attack somebody or you battle them on their homeworld, they're always going to have a home field advantage. Now, when the Bene Gesserit are at high threshold, that home field advantage is they get to add 3 to their dial in any battle that they are in there. It also means that if there is a laser gun shield explosion on Wallach 9, they will lose 3 of their undialed forces in that battle. So you can't necessarily wipe out 19 Bene Gesserit forces by going in on them on turn 1 to fight it out. That goes down to 2 in both cases when they're at low threshold. So they will lose fewer in such an explosion, and they only add 2. But again, it's the Bene Gesserit. You're going to be fighting them on their home turf, and they're going to get the +2. Even if they are immune to the voice, it's certainly not easy to remain the occupier. So that continues to be a challenge for anybody occupying someone else's homeworld, because whenever they revive, they're always going to be having forces on the planet. The upside, of course, is that you can't ship forces from someone else's homeworld or from Arrakis back to your homeworld unless the Spacing Guild are in the game. So kind of ups the ante if that's the case. But if they're not in the game, you're only dealing with revived forces each time. So if you want to maintain a large garrison on someone else's homeworld, it makes it easier for you to fight the natives, but challenging nevertheless. And of course, in order to win the game, you need to be on Arrakis, not on Wallach 9. So, but maybe occupying it for 1 or 2 turns is just the edge you need in order to ensure victory. So that's it for Wallach 9. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions about this particular homeworld. Let me know your opinions of it, especially after you have had a chance to play it or see it in action, and any interesting stories about that. I certainly want to hear it. Thanks for watching, everybody. That is it for this video, and we'll see you again soon.